I now call for a motion to approve the minutes from the May 18th, 2021 annual meeting. It has been so moved and it has been second. Thank you so very much. Attendees, if you would please do me the privilege of, by a show of hands, please approve or vote for the approval of the May 18th, 2021 annual meeting minutes. See a lot of hands. Are there any in opposition? Are there any abstentions? And the motion carries. Thank you so very much. Okay, so Brett told me I would have a chance to speak to all of you. And at first I was like, I've been talking for 2 years now. I don't know if I have anything more to say, Brett. And then this morning, literally this morning, because the words would not come to me for days, pulled out the laptop and my fingers started moving. So here we go. First of all, I just have to say, this is just Sheila, okay? This is a day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. So peace and blessings to each and every one of you. My name is Sheila Sabrina Boston, and I am the 69th president of the New York City Bar Association. I had to say it one last time. My goodness, it's surreal how quickly 2 years can just fly by. For those of you who know me, I give thanks and all honor to God. It's who I am, the higher power through which I move, live, and have my being. I acknowledge God that He's enabled us to be together today, in person, in the house of the association, and it just feels so wonderful, so more officious, if you will, than being in that screen. You know, as Brett mentioned, I am the pandemic president. It's a nickname that was given to me by my husband, Jerome. He coined it for me since I've mostly been speaking and interacting with all of you virtually. When I stepped into this role 2 years ago, I greeted you virtually over Zoom, and that was new to me. And I wish you could have seen what was going on behind the stage. And sometimes I chuckle about this, okay? If you can just picture with me for a moment. I had a computer. I'm sitting at my husband's desk. I'm sitting at a computer in front of me so I could see the folks on the virtual podium like Brett and others. And then my husband, he made this makeshift contraption whereby he placed his iPad on a musical stand so it could serve as a teleprompter, but understand it was not a teleprompter, so he was manually moving the script and advancing it so I could speak to you. Comedic, right? Crazy. But then again, it wasn't so funny because quite frankly, it was a very, very dark time for us. And I was trying to do my best to speak life into all of you. And I tried to inspire you in some way because we were facing one of our darkest moments in humanity with the beginning of the pandemic, and there was so much fear and death and anxiety and depression all around us. It was palpable. But yet, here we are, strong and resilient. And I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart, it has been my utmost privilege, pleasure, and honor to serve as a representative of all of you, the best and the brightest in the profession of law. Before I received a phone call in the fall of 2019 about my nomination, and I can't remember if it was from Deborah Raskin or you, Brett, but frankly, I never in a million years would have imagined that I could or would become president of such an impressive and august body of professionals. So I thank you for entrusting me with this very important position, and thank you, quite frankly, for allowing me to be my authentic self. That means a lot, y'all. I can't even express it enough. And I know there were times some of you were like, really? Is she always this bubbly and crazy? Like, really? I get it from my friends and family. Well, yes, really. I was co-captain of my high school cheerleading team. I know some of you thought, really? Does she always have to talk about God and have some religious words and imagery in her? Well, yeah, I'm the daughter of a Black Baptist preacher, and because God has jokes, I'm now married to one. And I know others have asked, does she really always have to talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Well, yes, I'm a Black woman in America and intersectionality of two demographics which have historically been underrepresented, marginalized, and discriminated against in this country. You see, my parents, Louis and Isabel Boston, I have to call their names, they taught me about service, to serve others. It's in my DNA. And they taught me to speak up for what is just and right. They taught me that to whom much is given, much is required, and hence that I have a duty, an obligation to help others in need, to give voice to those rendered voiceless. I have a duty to be transparent and honest and try to be a woman of integrity. I have a duty. So thank you, because I did it in my own way. I thank you for embracing my authenticity. Now, let me say, as has been my custom, that I hope that every single one of you in this room and through the recording is healthy and well in mind, body, and spirit, because without good health, mentally and physically, you cannot be the best version of yourself as an attorney, as a human being, and as your authentic self. I'm so very proud of all of us. We've come a mighty long way. When I became president of the New York City Bar Association 2 years ago, it was a very crazy and chaotic time as COVID-19 pandemic swept our nation and was especially devastating right here in New York City. You guys remember. 2 years have now passed, and unfortunately, we are still dealing with the pandemic and its COVID variants, but things have gotten better. I told you they would. We now have vaccines and boosters. We know what kinds of steps we can take to lessen the risk of getting the virus, whether it's wearing masks, testing ourselves before being in the presence of others, and even engaging in wise social distancing. We now have medications which can be used to treat us if we have the virus. Moreover, many of us are now traveling again and participating in personal and professional gatherings and events such as the one this evening. We are learning to live in a new normal, like the hybrid workplace. But times are still tough. If we're to be honest with ourselves, we're still dealing with the aftermath of a lot of trauma, each and every one of us. When I think about the major challenges, both public and personal ones, which have confronted me over the past 2 years, it blows my mind. It's amazing to me that I'm standing here right now. Just to rattle off a few of them, and I'm gonna be vulnerable and transparent with you. Yes, COVID-19 pandemic, that's the obvious. I've had elder cares issues, as Brett knows. My mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. We had the murder of George Floyd, Black Lives Matter protests, anti-Asian violence and anti-immigrant sentiments, New York citizens' access to the travel priority programs temporarily suspended because we were deemed a sanctuary city or state, children being separated from parents at our borders. And few of you know this, but I'll share. My husband and I were in a really terrible car accident over a year ago, believe it or not. And I had a rotator cuff surgery just a few months ago. Brett knows about this. But I pushed through, still having intensive physical therapy. So there was physical pain as well as emotional pain. And then there was the insurrection on January 6th, my God, at the US Capitol. Mass shootings across the nation, including the recent one in our own home state, had me crying this weekend. The Russian Federation's invasion of Ukraine. And now a leak of a Supreme Court ruling and a likely overturning of Roe v. Wade. You can't make these things up because it's just in 2 years, y'all. And I'm sure all of you could easily list your both personal and public challenges that you've been facing over the last 2 years. So with a lot of prayer, meditation, and reflections, I've done my utmost best to try to encourage the City Bar community to be what? We're gonna do that again. We are, thank you, the Bar of Hope. That is a beacon and light amidst the darkness, trying to do its part to help repair and heal our land and its people, both literally and metaphysically. I have honestly believed and still believe that when it comes to facing major challenges and engaging in problem solving, lawyers, I know there are jokes about us, but the lawyers are especially well equipped to take on such tasks. In my humble opinion, and I've been very vocal about this, the rule of law in this country and democracy in this country, as Harlan was indicating earlier, here as well as abroad, it's at risk. In this country, we have a lot of vitriolic political divisions. It appears that we've forgotten our manners and code of civility and professionalism. We've forgotten how to disagree without being disagreeable. We even have forgotten some of the oaths we take as lawyers, in particular as defenders of the US Constitution and laws. And others, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, have lost their way in terms of being patriots and responsible and good citizens. And so I think it's imperative for the City Bar and others to engage in serious, deep, and honest discussions about the socioeconomic hardship the pandemic has wrought, the inequities in our healthcare system that have been revealed, the current resurgence of suppression of voting rights, anti-immigrant sentiments, the rise of racism, sexism, homophobism, and other isms, an attempt to sweep racism under the proverbial rug with attacks on critical race theory, banning books, and trying to legislate that we can't have our children in sensible ways talk about the Holocaust and slavery. What? And then there's a very disturbing public distrust growing of our justice system, one of our hallmarks, that of being America and a democracy. And that, my friends, is just a short list of what keeps me up at night. But I can honestly say that I still have faith. We can rise above our differences and find fair and peaceful solutions to current societal ills. I'm one of those people who truly believes that the law is a noble profession, and lawyers and those who support lawyers can be change agents for the good. I believe in the struggle for a more just and peaceful world, and anyone who knows me knows I am the consummate optimist. I try to find joy and positivity even in the little things. I am, in essence, full of hope. And that's why I asked that the city bar, at least during my tenure, be dubbed as the Bar of Hope. As president of the Bar of Hope, I asked the city bar community, all officers, professional staff, executive board members, committee members and their chairs, as well as the membership at large, to prioritize and join me in focusing in on 6 areas of concentration, those 6 pillars of programming and policy for the Bar of Hope. They included COVID-19 recovery projects, mental health and wellness, criminal justice reform, access to justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and protection of the rule of law. And I want to thank all of you, especially our committees, for going above and beyond my expectations. I'm not sure that all of you really know just how wonderful, cutting edge, prolific, prophetic, and productive this bar association is. We have great reason to be proud and to hold up our heads high. We're one of the oldest bar associations in the country, 152 years old. Harlan told you about our history. We are dedicated to equipping and mobilizing a diverse legal profession to practice with excellence, promote reform of the law or needed changes, to uphold the rule of law and access to justice, and to do these things in support of a fair society and the public interest in our community, in our nation, and throughout the world. That's our mission. It should be on our website. I believe it is. We have over 150 committees, task forces, and work groups. These committees and subgroups address all different kinds of areas of law, everything from bankruptcy to housing law to labor law to securities law to criminal law, torts, environmental law, ethics, and pro bono services, and that's just to name a few. We say that the city bar, it covers everything in the law from A to Z, from animal rights to zoning laws, and that's no joke. Whatever the area of law you can name, I'm sure we're covering it in some fashion or form. The city bar is considered one of the most prestigious bar associations, not just nationally, but internationally. Hear me. We are one of the legal capitals of the world. We have an embarrassment of riches and blessings when it comes to legal talent, many of the best and brightest legal minds. And I've said it before in speeches, and I'm gonna say it again, because this is us. We are New York City, the Big Apple. New York, New York. So nice they had to name it twice. That's one of the truisms. And the other one is, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. New York, New York. We are the city bar, and we have a very rich history, as Harlan so eloquently shared with you. This idea of the removal of corrupt judges, this idea of promoting justice and doing what's right, this is legal history you should know about. Be proud of it. By the 1960s, the city bar became an increasingly democratic organization. Yes, we used to be a little hoity-toity, but we started easing restrictions on membership and actively engaging in social issues. We were, and still are not perfect. We have an imperfect history, and we're doing all we can to improve and evolve and be better, and thank you for that promise. And on a historical and social note, I will say I am beyond honored to have been the first woman of color president and the 5th woman president of this illustrious organization. And although I know that I am not any more special than any other female lawyer or female lawyer of color from those respective communities, it's truly been my privilege and honor to serve as a representative of such historically underrepresented groups, which are full of talent and intellect. They're awesome. I'm just but one representative. And we are continuing to strive in this nation for a more inclusive and equitable country and a more perfect union. It amazes me the wonderful resources we have. Brett already listed them, so I'm not going to go through them again. Well, yeah, I am, just really quickly. The City Bar Justice Center, love you, Kurt Dink. The Vance Center for Justice and International Affairs, love you, Alex Papacristal. The Lawyer Referral Service, George Wolf, kudos to you. The Lawyers Assistance Program, Eileen Travis, you are amazing. The Office for Diversity and Inclusion, which during my tenure actually had two people as executive directors. There was Deborah Martin Owens and then James Lewis. Such remarkable work done by all of them. And I have to give a shout out to David Levine and Carol Villegas, who adeptly chaired the City Bar Fund during my 2 years. I wish I could just tell you all of the great things we've done. Even just over the past year, since our last annual meeting, virtual meeting, we've made a great impact. There's too much to tell, but as usual, yes, Brett, hold on just a moment. I am going to give a few examples, forgive me. In my typical fashion, by recognizing them as programs, policies, and projects under our 6 pillars of hope. So hold on with me just a few more minutes. 1, COVID-19 recovery projects. We've published reports and statements concerning how to hold the bar exam in our state during a pandemic and how our courts should function safely and efficiently during these times. We assisted the Fund for Modern Courts in authoring a report about the overburdened family court in our state. The family court handles about 200,000 cases a year, and that court, unfortunately, has a tremendous backlog due to the pandemic. But we played a role in educating not just our profession, but the New York State community about such a pressing issue. A few months ago, I moderated a panel called The Hybrid Remote Future. It was the second of a 2-part series sponsored by the New Lawyers Institute, and the discussion was geared toward helping managers and decision makers and law firms and legal departments navigate the new normal. And more recently, we had a program entitled The Impact of COVID-19 on Business Practices and the Rights of Vulnerable Workers and Communities, sponsored by the Working Group on Business and Human Rights, as well as the International Human Rights Committee. We've done a whole lot more. That's just a smidgen. But I'm just truly thankful that our committees are still taking the effects of the pandemic seriously and contributing in conversations and educational programming about productive ways for us to recover and move on. Number 2, mental health and wellness. Over the past 2 years, I have consistently been sharing with all of you about the importance of mental health and wellness. As we all know, we work in a very stressful profession. Is there anyone who would disagree here? Let me see your hands. No? Okay, good. We all tend to have alpha personalities and tendencies. We often have an aversion to any type of admission of weakness, and thereby we tend to suffer in silence. So I wrote a presidential column about how we must resist that temptation, how we should not suffer in silence. We all must do what we can, not just to survive, y'all. I want you to thrive. Whether it's meditating, praying, exercise, yoga, deep breathing exercises, listening to music, do whatever it is that will help you to relax and deal with the stress of our profession and life challenges. It is serious. I said it last night and I'll say it again. I'm truly thankful that I had the best lawyer assistance program in the world with which to partner during these precarious times. Oh, thank you, Eileen Travis. Working with her and Priscilla Lundin, who's the chair of the LAP committee, and I have to give a shout out to the Mindfulness and Wellbeing in the Law Committee, chaired by Lisa Podemski. I know some of you might wonder, well, why did she make mental health and wellness such a priority? Let me just give you quick statistics. Research by the ABA indicates lawyers are the most depressed of 105 surveyed professions. A 2020 study featuring participants from California, DC, and other places found, quote, roughly half of practicing attorneys are experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety, with approximately 30% of those falling in the mild range and 20% falling in the moderate severe range, unquote. And after cancer and heart disease, suicide is actually the 3rd most common cause of death, and according to the National Institute of Mental Health, lawyers are nearly 5 times more likely than the general population to die by suicide. Need I say more? It's no joke. It's a matter of life and death, and we must act accordingly. We've done so much: CLEs, podcasts, book clubs. And let me note that our reach has extended beyond the walls of New York City and this country, y'all. Our influence has actually been international. One of my favorite memories was when I had the privilege of participating on a panel. It was virtual, but still, it was early last year, sponsored by the International Association of Lawyers. On the panel were representatives, the presidents of bar associations of Mexico, Germany, India, and Italy. And I'm proud to report the city bar was the obvious leader of the pack in terms of its work on mental health and wellness. And we have received several expressions of gratitude and requests for assistance with mental health and wellness programs abroad. So I'm proud of our work. Moving on quickly. Number 3, criminal justice reform. Earlier in my tenure, we had panels discussing criminal justice issues, everything from no-knock warrants to chokeholds to sentencing guidelines to parole and bail issues. We wrote pieces and spoke out about the dangerous health conditions at Rikers Island, the humanitarian crisis taking place there. We recommended a women's-only correctional facility for better health care and the provision of necessary health products, even simple things like sanitary napkins, having enough. And after a 2-year hiatus, I was excited because we resumed the arts lecture. We had it in person. Our guest speaker was Judge John Gleason. The topic was criminal sentencing, and the name of his lecture was Racial Disparities and Second Looks in Federal Sentencing, a Window into Dysfunction and a Path Out of It. Criminal justice reform. City bar is there. 4, access to justice. I don't even need to say much there because we have the City Bar Justice Fund. It engages in all of its wonderful pro bono legal service work, providing legal assistance to our New York City neighbors who can't otherwise afford it. We fought for the right to counsel in our housing courts. Past President Roger Maldonado has continued to work with us on that front, so proud of that. I'm pleased to share we have the City Bar's Housing Court Committee, a podcast that was launched for the Association on Housing Court Matters. We have sounded the alarm, we're fighting the good fight, and I'm very proud of it. We issued policy recommendations to Mayor Adams regarding pro bono and legal services. And during my tenure, I've testified twice in Albany before Chief Judge Janet DeFiore about the importance of funding the legal services. And with the able assistance of our Judiciary Committee, the Executive Committee voted to find, it was exciting for me, y'all, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, highly qualified for the Supreme Court of the United States. It was inspirational and historical, and yes, from a racial standpoint, but it was also so important from another access to justice standpoint, and that is that she spent much of her professional career as a public defender. Shout out to Barry Kamens out there. A viewpoint and experience woefully underrepresented on our highest court of the land. Moving on, number 5, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm especially proud of the presidential series I launched, which concentrated on legal issues and the law profession with a focus on Black women and girls. Being the first woman of color president and Black woman in particular, I felt an obligation to do something to highlight and celebrate that demographic. And so we had 4 presentations. We were educated about the over-policing of Black girls in the education system. We met and learned from 4 brilliant Black women law school deans. We had an illuminating panel about Black women in the prison industrial complex and the challenges of their reentry into the community. And then we had our very own phenomenal Brett Parker introduced 4 Black women leaders who've been serving on our City Bar Board. Our Office of Diversity and Inclusion continued to engage in mission-critical work and their signature state-of-the-art programming throughout the last 2 years. Even with the transition in executive directors, the office hardly skipped a beat. We had wonderful programming by our United Nations Committee, especially the International Law Conference on the Status of Women. Oh, we did so much. We had a panel on critical race theory. I got to play the role of a judge in the Albany reenactment entitled Kung Flu, a history of violence and hostility against Asian Americans. Special shout outs of thanks to Albany and to Kathy Chin and Judge Danny Chin for that wonderful presentation, which was very well attended, I might add. And speaking of diversity, I can't end talking about it without bragging about our outgoing executive committee and how it's a testament to how important diversity, equity, and inclusion is and how successful it can be. I want you to know there was no rubber stamping. We discussed, argued, but always found solutions and worked well together. But it was a board where 50% of our members were members of the BIPOC, people of color communities. And over 50% of them are women. All 3 vice presidents, in addition to me as president, women. That's just unheard of and remarkable for a so-called majority bar association. And I'm just extremely indebted to each and every one who served on our executive committee, Harlan, for their professionalism, intellect, wisdom, fairness, sense of justice, and also collegiality and compassion. All right, we're rolling in. This is number 6, 6th pillar, protection of the rule of law. I'm proud of our work on voting rights. We created a pledge for all lawyers to sign. I hope you've done so. If not, go to our website. We've been sending out statements on the protection of voting rights. We played a key role in having the ABA adopt 2 important resolutions regarding voting rights. And there are several major rule of law projects which make me proud, but I'll only mention 2 more. One is with respect to JCOPE. Shout out to Maria Salenti. Yes, that's our state's Joint Commission on Public Ethics. Well, the legislature decided to act contrary to our recommendations, but we've decried what the legislature adopted and have been critical, as the new commission is still subject to domination by elected officials, and it isn't empowered enough to deal with sexual harassment and discrimination. So it's one area where we are still on the battlefield and fighting the good fight, and I'm entrusting it to you. The other important area under the rubric of protection of the rule of law are statements about what's currently taking place in Ukraine. We continue to speak out and speak up and make recommendations about what should be done in that horrific situation. Shout out to the Rule of Law Task Force. I love you. To date, we have issued public statements about the illegality of the Russian Federation's invasion of Ukraine. We called for the prompt investigation of allegations of war crimes committed by the Russian Federation forces. And we asked for the establishment of a hybrid tribunal to investigate and prosecute the crime of aggression against Ukraine. We condemned censorship of independent media reporting in Russia, as well as journalists in Ukraine. We've been standing up and speaking out. Those are 6 pillars of the bar of hope. And my friends, what I told you is really not even the tip of the iceberg. I just wanted to try to shorten it a little bit. But I want to thank all of our 150 plus committees, task forces, and work groups. You've all been terrific, but I am going to take that personal privilege for a moment, as I did last year, as I want to recognize just a few of them in a very personal and special way. I call these the Bar of Hope Presidential Awards and Honorable Mention Certificates. So, first, and they're in the mail. You'll get them. Give me a week or 2. First, let me announce the honorable mentions. There are a total of 5 again, but different ones. They include the Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee, chaired by Phil Goldstein, the Election Committee, chaired by Catherine Loving, the Environmental Committee, chaired by Margaret Berry and Bethany Davis-Knoll, the UN Committee, chaired by Clayton Chaney and Catherine Van Kempen, and the White Collar Committee, chaired by Marshall Miller. Can we just thank them? Great work. And, drum roll, top honor. Okay, I couldn't just pick one, I'm sorry. Top honors of the Bar of Hope go to 3 different committees. The Judiciary Committee, chaired by Tracy Davis. The Judiciary Committee consists of an ethnically diverse membership of attorneys whose professional affiliations range from solo and large firm practices to academic and governmental agencies. That committee is one of the hardest working at the City Bar, as they seek to ensure that candidates meet appropriate standards of professional competence and integrity, and that candidates are qualified for the office sought. This past year, the Judiciary Committee reviewed over 150 candidates, and they're thorough, y'all. I can't even begin to explain to you, including assisting the City Bar Board in its review of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court. Please give it up for the Judiciary Committee. Also an awardee, the Mass Incarceration Task Force, chaired by Sarah Berger and Julian Harris-Calvin. Since issuing its comprehensive report offering multiple recommendations for a pathway out of mass incarceration last year, the task force has authored or signed onto 12 reports focusing on topics such as addressing the humanitarian crisis at Rikers Island, offering reform recommendations to the new mayor, governor, and Manhattan District Attorney. The task force recently hosted a panel discussion that explored what ending mass incarceration in New York could look like and how that conversation is not in tension with community safety. They've done tremendous work. Please give it up for the Mass Incarceration Task Force. And finally, they're not in order, it's just alphabetical. The third award goes to Mindfulness and Wellbeing Committee, chaired by Lisa Podemski. Lisa is a powerhouse. Along with her amazing committee, they've led the charge on lawyer self-care and renewal, offering weekly yoga sessions and mindfulness breaks at a time when it was so desperately needed, offering programs in observance of Wellbeing Week in Law and Mental Health Awareness Month, which is right now, hosting a monthly book club, exploring books relating to mindfulness, authoring a wellness toolkit, which is on our website. Oh my goodness, they've done such incredible work. So please give it up for the Mindfulness and Wellbeing Committee. Congratulations to all 8 subpart awardees. Okay, my last thank yous, and I'm out of here. Again, I thank God for this honor and this privilege. It's been amazing. Deborah Raskin, where are you? You told me it was going to be the most amazing job I've ever had. I remember you saying that. I want to thank my husband, Jerome, and my kids, Ariel and Rome, and my new daughter, Ebony. Shout out to my brother, Jamie Boston, who did a neat interview for us and for letting me pick his brain sometimes on things. Thank you to my church families at Abyssinian in Harlem and First Baptist in Annapolis, Maryland. To all my friends, you know who you are. You're the best network a woman could ever have. To my beloved law firm, Arnold & Porter. Woo, for all those non-billable hours. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Arnold & Porter, Case Stroller LLP, my chair, Richard Alexander, thank you for your magnificent and tremendous support. Thank you to all of the past. Thank you to all of the past presidents of this great association, because it's on your shoulders that I stand. Thank you to my wonderful executive board committees, both years. Thank you to Amanda Chu and Justine Dugan. They get a special shout out and their names aloud, because they not only kept my city bar and my law firm calendars in sync, but they were constantly giving me encouraging words. Thank you, New York City bar staff, every single one of you, but especially to my inner circle, that posse with whom I interacted consistently, pretty much daily. And please, no one take offense. I love all of you, but my God, every day I was talking to Brett Parker, Maria Salenti, and Eric Friedman. With respect to the 3 of you, please accept my profound appreciation for your support, hard work, intelligence, diligence, commitment, patience, sense of humor. We needed it. Compassion, and even love that you have exhibited while we work together. I want to extend my best wishes and congratulations to my successor, Susan Coleman. I feel like I'm giving you my baby right now, Susan. So I need you to be tender, take really good care of it. And I know, though, Susan, you're going to do a great job, and you're going to take us to higher heights. So you're in great hands, particularly with Brett over there. And if you need me for anything, just call. In closing, I want to share with you my hope. I hope that each of you will stay safe, healthy, and well, that you will be kind to others and be kind to yourself. I hope that this pandemic will be over soon. Brett, I hope that a cure for Parkinson's will be found. I hope that a cure for Alzheimer's will be found, because it's personal to me. I hope, Maria, that our daughters and those of others will have a future where there is no pay inequity or other types of systemic sex discrimination, and that one day they'll have equal rights and the ability to have power over their own bodies and to chart their own destinies and no longer face glass ceilings and barriers. I hope, Harlan, that we'll soon get serious about climate change and do what is best to save our Earth. Eileen, I don't know if you're out there, but I hope we can continue to help those in our profession with addictions and mental illness, such that the staggering statistics for lawyers will dramatically decrease. I hope, Kurt, if you're out there, that we can increase the right to counsel for those who cannot afford legal services, and that we'll do more to improve access to justice for all. I hope, Drexel, that we may make greater strides in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I hope that we'll soon lessen the divide between the haves and the have-nots, particularly when it comes to healthcare. I'm not a proponent of socialism, but I am a proponent of taking care of the least of these and establishing a strong safety net for those most vulnerable in our capitalist society. And I hope that all of you, New York City Bar, under Susan's leadership, will continue to hope, persevere, and help the arc of the moral universe to bend towards justice. Change takes a while, but it happens. And I hope that one day we will become that beloved community about which Martin Luther King Jr. described so eloquently. I hope, I hope, I hope. Thank you, New York City Bar Association. Thank you. It's been an honor and privilege. Thank you. Okay, I don't believe they expect me to do business after that, but it is now time. Voting for officers and members of the board is now officially closed. The City Bar has counted all of the votes cast in person or by proxy, and I am pleased and delighted to announce the election of the following directors and officers. President, Susan J. Coleman, Madam President. Vice Presidents of the Association, Harlan A. Levy, the Honorable Jonathan Lipman, and Peter J.W. Sherwin. The new Secretary, Leslie Horton Campbell. A wise choice, remaining as Treasurer, Thomas R. Sloan. New board members include Whitney J.V. Brooks, Melissa Colon-Beausolet, Philip, and I cannot pronounce the last, DeGrange, okay, sorry, Philip, please forgive me. William T. Russell, Rosalind K. Quay, Rocky Badkar Rajpal, and Michelle Cerezo Natal. And finally, the following individuals have been elected as members of the nominating committee. Lisa Stinson Desamore, the Honorable Elizabeth Donahue, Dora Galakatos, I hope I said your name correctly, Dora, please forgive me, Terry S. Rosenblatt, and Joseph M. Drayton. And now, without further ado, I need you all to give your greatest support. You were good to me, and now I need you to be good to her. Please, to those of some of you, I am introducing her. To others, I am presenting her. She is our new president, Madam President Susan J. Coleman.